my farmer friends. It is Corinna and welcome to my kitchen. We are moving around today in my house because the weather out here in Northwest Ohio is really icky today. It's dark and dank outside. It's actually a snow day for my kids because of the freezing rain, so I have the boys at home today. Hope you guys get a chance to check in, say hi if you're here, just so I know who I'm talking to, and I will be able to answer some of your questions. So today's live training is going to be a doozy. It's a really strong piece of content, one of the core elements of what it takes to be a digital farmer and a digital marketer. We are going to learn today all about how to build your email campaigns and the process that I go through when I create my emails, sales sequences, and nurture sequences. So this is a pretty big topic. I know a lot of you have been waiting eagerly for it, and it's now time to start teaching that because you have done the groundwork, hopefully, before today. You've done your research with your customer, you've gotten into their head, you've gone through the worksheets, the before and after grid. You've perhaps gotten your survey results and you know how they're thinking, you know what the problem is for your customer, and you can identify some of the pain points and some of the goals and aspirations that they have. And that's all really important information for you today before we dive into this. So I just want to review with you kind of the parameters for how I do these trainings. This is probably going to be on the longer side today because it's going to be a really deep dive, all about how to write emails. Excuse me, I'm still a little sick. So if you have questions, please jot them down, type them into the comments during the session, and I will get to them at the end. But during the actual training itself, I will probably not be engaging with you, just so I can use this email later and maybe put it on YouTube eventually, okay? So, Becky is here. Hi, Becky. I'm glad you're live with me. Okay, so here we go. I'm going to start my intro again. So today we are talking all about how to build an email campaign. This is a really, really important skill set. It's probably one of the most important skill sets that you'll learn because I have discovered that email is kind of the secret sauce that's making my engine fire. This is kind of a fun statistic. 66% of consumers have made a purchase online as a result of an email marketing message. So for people who tell you that email is dead, that is not the case. There's this phrase that's out there in the digital marketing world that your money is in the list. The idea that if you have a big email list, you'll be able to make money. And that's somewhat true, but I would argue that it's not just having an email list. You have to actually have a plan to use your email list. So you can collect all these email leads and put them in your ConvertKit, ESP service provider. But if you're not actually writing emails, or you don't have a strategy for writing emails, you're not going to be able to move people along. So it's really important that you have an email campaign, at least one, in your business. And as you build out your funnels and build more product lines, you will ideally create a campaign sequence for each of them. So I have used this email builder that I'm going to share with you today, this process, not just for my CSA product, but I have one for my farmers market product. I'm building one for my canning club, so that I can slowly funnel people and move them along the journey. So today is all about starting to build the strategy, okay? Now the role of email marketing is to assist in moving the customer along from one stage of the journey to the other. If you've gone through some of my trainings, you know that when customers first come to you, they are not ready to buy. They are certainly not ready to shell out $385 for a big ticket item like a CSA share. If they've never heard of you, that's a lot to ask. And when you think about the big purchases that you've made in the past, you don't just do it like that. You think about it and you warm yourself up to it. And it's the same way here. And that is what email marketing does. The lead magnet is the bait and pulls them in, and then your email sequence automatically triggers and fires and starts to drip out to them over the course of a certain amount of time, whatever you designate. And they're opening these emails because they're actually interested in your product, because they've downloaded your lead magnet. They've raised their hand to show, I'm actually kind of interested in knowing more about this. I would actually open these emails. So if you write the emails in the right way, and if you answer the questions they have, and you speak to their pain points and their aspirations, you will move them along the customer journey until they're at that place where they're a warm audience or a hot audience and they're ready to buy. All right? So I wanted today's training to be really actionable. So we're going to go through the exact planning process that I use to map out my campaign. Now, I have to admit that I did formalize it a little bit more for today's purposes. I tend to just sit down with a pad of paper and a giant calendar like this one on the wall, or sometimes a whiteboard, and I just kind of brainstorm and write things out, or I get post-it notes and I kind of move them around. But I thought, well, let me create some kind of a document or a worksheet that I can kind of structure how I do it in my head. And I have actually put that together for you, and this is the freebie today that I'm going to share with you. You can download it actually right now at sharedlegacyfarms.com/campaignbuilder. And this has got like 8 or 9 pages in it, and this is where you can write your notes, and it kind of goes through the things you need to be thinking about as you're going to be writing your emails. So we're going to walk through this a little bit too. All right, so someone has opted into your lead magnet, right? So you know they're interested in your product, okay? Because they've opted into your lead magnet, the way you've set up your email service provider and your landing page builder, it's caused your, once they've gotten it delivered into their email box, they've now been tagged a certain way because of what you've done in your email service provider. They've been tagged as a lead for this particular product, okay? Then you also tell your email service provider, anybody who's been tagged with this particular tag, immediately, automatically start a drip campaign that you have pre-written, okay? So that's some technology piece that I'll have to show you later, but that's sort of what's happened. And today we're going to talk about what is in that email. So how do you get someone to cross the line and actually buy your products? And what do you say in these emails, right? What do you talk about? I remember being there. I remember first learning about this and saying, oh my gosh, I get this. This is a great concept and I can see how it works, but how do you write the emails and what do you say? So as it turns out, there is kind of a science to it. There is an art to copywriting, and that is why I took a copywriting class. I would encourage you someday to actually consider investing in that. There are a couple of different places that you can do that I think are pretty good. But there are, in general, certain kinds of topics that these email campaigns typically talk about, that they use to kind of figure out what should I say. So I'm not going to talk a lot about today specifically how to word your emails. That is not today's training. Today's training is figuring out the overall map, what are the topics I should talk about, figuring out what order they should go, and giving you ideas for what those topics should be. And then we'll have another training on some kind of copywriting essentials, like how you'll look over my shoulder and kind of see some examples of actual emails and how they're written. But today's just meant to kind of help you map out the strategy, which is the first step. Okay? All right. So really you just need to think about this whole process as a conversation with your customer, okay? Like you're meeting them over coffee, and you're trying to just talk them through your product. And you have to connect with them by joining the conversation that's already going on in their mind. Okay, now just think about that for a moment. They have come into your sphere of influence, they've shown interest and raised their hand, so they're already in a certain place, and you've got to join them where they are. You have to not make assumptions that they know anything about your product. You've got to figure out what is it that they want to know, not what is it that I think they want to know. What do they want to know? And then you've got to deliver that. Okay? So, there are a few different kinds of email campaigns. I'm not going to go into detail here, but I do want to back up and just remind you that there are many types of email campaigns that you could be writing and that eventually someday you should be writing if you really dive into this wholeheartedly. There are things called indoctrination email sequences. These are like the customer onboarding ones. When somebody actually becomes a customer, you send them emails that reassure them that they made the right decision, that you teach them how to use the product, you give them details so that they know what to do next. There are things called nurturing campaigns, which are purely designed to just build the know, like, and trust factor. And you're doing a lot of giving, so almost every email is giving them a tool, giving them a tip, giving them a shortcut. There are things called win-back campaigns or re-engagement campaigns. Win-back campaigns are for people who have been kind of dead on your list, who haven't engaged or opened. And so there are campaigns you can write to try and get them to click a button and get back active in your list. There are things called re-engagement campaigns where they maybe gone through a funnel and they've gone through the email campaign that you've already done and now they're just kind of sitting there. And so you can segment them, put them back up into another campaign over here and start trying to sell them a different product line. Okay, all different kinds of types of emails. The one we're going to talk about today is the promotional campaign. And I think the majority of people who do email campaigning focus on this one, and they don't do a lot of the other ones, unfortunately. I would argue that those are just as important to have a strong brand. But we're going to focus on the promotional type of campaign. And there are basically two types of promotional campaigns, and you may find that you have to write two of them for your CSA product. I'm just going to assume that you guys are writing this for your CSA. Okay, so the one type, these are kind of based on how the campaign's being used. So you can write a promotional campaign for your CSA that I would call a launch campaign. All right, and this is something that you write for a very specific time frame. In my case, I did a 21-day launch for my CSA members in October to try and get them to renew their membership. And I was very focused. I'm only going to do this for 21 days. I'm going to go in hard and fast and hardcore, and I'm going to try and get them to buy. And then I went silent, right? Then I stopped trying to sell and promote. The same kind of thing I would argue you should try doing this year if you've already got kind of a comfortable CSA number and you're not like freaking out about trying to find 1 million new members. I want you to consider trying the launch strategy where you designate a certain amount of time in an ideal month when people are like looking for this. So maybe April, March, April, if your CSA starts, let's say in June, March or April, where you set aside like, okay, 3 weeks or 2 weeks, and I'm going to sell hard and fast. I'm going to create a promotional plan for these 3 weeks. I'm going to have something that happens every day. I'm going to create this email campaign that's running for those 3 weeks and is designed to really sell, and I'm going to build an offer that goes away after 3 weeks, that has urgency and scarcity, and it forces them against the wall at the end of that 3 weeks to buy. Okay, so that's one way that you can write a promotional campaign, and I have one of those. I just used it, like I said, in October on my CSA members for Early Bird, and I got a 78% retention out of that. So it was awesome. And then right after that was done, I had in place another launch for people who were on my CSA leads list. Okay, so not the grand public trying to get cold traffic, just people that were already warm, that had raised their hand and showed interest in CSA at some point, but weren't in my CSA yet. And so I had a whole nother campaign that I had written for them. A lot of it was the same as for the Early Bird people. Kind of just moved stuff around and changed the wording a little bit, but it was written differently because this is a different audience. They have different questions. They don't need to have the question answered, what's in my box? Because they know what's in my box if they've been in my CSA for a year, right? But to a newbie who's never done it, that would be a very interesting email. So I kind of, moved things around. So, but again, that was also for a 2-week period, and I went hard and fast and strong. and then I shut down the offer, and the bonuses and the freebies went away. Okay, so that is one style of a promotional campaign. I want you to think about whether you want to create one of those. The other one that you can create is called what I call kind of an ongoing leads nurture. So I have another email campaign, again, very similar elements to the ones I just described, for CSA leads that come in throughout the year, right? So you're going to have people that log in or that download your lead magnet in July or August, halfway through your CSA, and maybe can't get into your CSA because you're full or you're not open right now. So how do you get them engaged? How do you keep them in the loop and educate them about what CSA is so that they are ready at the end to want to somehow engage with you and do something with your farm? Okay, so I have a sequence, an email campaign in place in my email service provider that is triggered once my CSA is sold out or it started. I turn off the other one, I turn this one on. That's my ongoing leads nurture, okay? So that is another type of promotional campaign that you could create. So I just want you to be aware of that, and as we talk today, I am going to be kind of showing different examples of that, okay? But as you're building your campaign, that's going to be one of the steps that you have to make. You have to make that decision, make that call, all right? Okay, so here we go. We're going to dive in now into this worksheet. If you've downloaded it while I'm talking, you can be following along. But the very first step that you need to do when I sit down and start this process is I have to decide who is my target audience for this email campaign. Okay, that is step one. Who is your target audience? Are you going to focus on a person that is on your leads list already? So they're going to, maybe they've already heard this pitch last year but didn't sign up. Or maybe it's going to be for a CSA member that you want to get to renew. Okay, so they're a different target audience, right? So this is kind of where you make that decision. Okay, what kind of email sequence is this going to be? Is it going to be one of those where I'm talking to people that already know about CSA, or is it going to be one where they're still kind of fuzzy about the details? Okay, who's your target audience? This is one of the reasons why it's really important to segment and to have an email service provider that can tag and segment your audience. So again, I know I've talked about ConvertKit. I'm almost certain that just about every email service provider has the ability to tag, but you should be tagging. As people come in through your lead magnets, you should be telling your email service provider, tag them with downloaded the A to Z vegetable guide, come up with descriptive tags that will allow you to see the actions that they have taken so that you know where they are and what they've been exposed to so you can speak to them. All right, so I want you to reference my video and the video archives in this group that's all about the early bird renewal launch strategy. I did a whole video on that, so you're going to find some good information in there too. If you haven't figured out where that video archive is, I don't think you can see it if you're looking on your mobile phone. You can see it on your desktop though. It's over on the left side. It's underneath, there's about, discussion, members, events, videos. Tap on videos and it's going to open up the whole page of all our past videos that we've done in this group. The second question, the second step that you need to ask, which is on this campaign builder here, is what is the goal of the campaign? This is so important. So many people don't think about this question and they just start writing emails. What is the goal of the campaign? Okay, how do you define success? Is it if they click on a certain link, if they download a particular lead magnet, if they buy the product, if they buy your tripwire offer, if they re-engage, so somehow show that they're re-engaged? It kind of depends on your type of campaign, right? So what is it that you want them to do where you'll be like, yes? And they might do that at the end of email 3. They might not do it till the end of email 9, okay? But for you, what is success? What is the goal? So in my case, for this kind of a lead email campaign, the obvious answer for me was, if they buy a CSA membership, then I have succeeded. Then I turn them off, I unsubscribe them from this email campaign, right? That's really important. If somebody is going through your campaign, let's say you've written 14 emails, okay? That's a lot, but, and they decide at email 4, they click on the link and they buy, all right? You get a notice through your store or whatever that they're in. It's really, really important that you go and take their email address, go to your email service provider and take them off, unsubscribe them from this list. You don't want to keep selling them hardcore if they've already purchased, right? And some email service provider, actually all of them will sync. If you're doing it through like an online store, you can sync all those elements so that it'll happen automatically. I just happen to use Member Assembler, and so Member Assembler doesn't sync, at least I haven't figured out how to have it sync with ConvertKit. So every time I get a notice in my email box that someone's bought, I have to go in, cut and paste their name, go over to ConvertKit. It's kind of a clunky way of working, so that's one of the reasons why I am moving to an online store system in the future, just so I don't miss anything and it just happens automatically. Okay, so step 2, what's the goal? Step 3, define the offer. Now, I have a whole video training about building your offer, so I'm not going to go into crazy detail about this. In fact, you're going to hear a lot of similar elements in today's training from that video. What is the offer? Okay, so the offer is the pitch. It's like, what's the whole package that someone gets? If they buy, what are they getting? Not just, what if they buy during this period? So this especially applies if you are doing an email campaign, one of those launch type campaigns where you're only running it for 2 to 3 weeks and then it's done, the hard selling is done, and then you just go back to like your normal weekly email. So if you're running that kind of a promotion, you're going to have a very specific offer that's trying to push them against the wall, right, and force them to act. So I'm going to kind of walk you through what some things might be in your offer, but here's a question you can ask yourself. If a customer uses blank product, they will overcome blank and finally achieve blank. So write that sentence down. If my customer uses blank, they will overcome blank, usually a pain point or a problem, and finally achieve blank, their desired outcome. Okay, so if you can fill in that sentence, that is going to really help you spell out a vision for what success looks like for your customer, okay? And that's going to be really helpful for you as you try to build your offer, because that sentence is going to help you know what to include in your specific offer. So here's just like big picture, the types of things that you would put in your offer. You want to just kind of jot down what are the features that come with this. So 18 weeks of vegetables, you get a newsletter, you get to go to farm events. But more than that, what are the benefits that come along with those features? So speak to, so what you get a newsletter? How does that matter? How does that help your customer? Okay, so finish that sentence. A newsletter that will share the story of the farm and help you feel connected to your farmer. Boom, now you've just touched into that feeling that we all know CSA leads have. They want to feel connected to the farmer. So you've spoken to that particular desire, right? So, but the way you wrote that, the way you built the offer, didn't just talk about the features, it spoke to the benefits, okay? So make a list of your features and benefits, come up with some bonuses, there's always bonuses in an offer, if you're doing one of these 2 to 3 week type things. Bonuses are hard to do if you just have an open-ended, you can join whenever, because there's nothing special about it because the offer never goes away. It's always available. So this is really more for those campaign incentives when you're doing those short-term bursts of activity. Set a deadline. So know when does the offer, this process begin and when does it end, so everyone's clear about when the offer is over. And create scarcity and urgency. So try to come up, we'll go over this in a little more detail in a second, but come up with some things that are going to disappear. There's a reason why you have to buy this now, or you only have so many of something, and when they're sold out, they're sold out. Okay, so those are some ways of creating scarcity and urgency. So those are things you need to think through as you build your offer. So just kind of jot down, in this step I jot down, what is it that I want to sell? What are the things that I want to really focus on? This is what they're getting. Okay, so here's what my offer was. You can actually go to sharedlegacyfarms.com/box, and you can see my sales page that I built in Lead Pages. And this is where I send everyone, if they show interest in my CSA and they're reading through my emails, and if they click the I'm ready to buy now button, it takes them to my sales page. It doesn't take them to my cart where they order it. It takes them to the sales page first. And then on the sales page, there are like buttons all over the place that say, I'm ready now, I'm ready now, I'm ready now. Okay, but here's an example of what an offer might look like, okay? 18 weekly boxes of seasonal great tasting vegetables from our farm. Okay, so that is the basic. You're getting vegetables, but you're getting great tasting vegetables, so I stuck that in there. Face-to-face contact with your farmer at pickup. Interesting. So normally, years ago, I never put that in my offer because to me that's not something that you can walk home with. But because I know that's important to my customers, that's the number one reason they join CSA. I'm talking about that as a benefit, as a part of my offer. You get to actually see me, not someone else at the pickup site. I am at every site, so you can shake my hand. Access to our acclaimed private Facebook community for coaching and support. Yeah, this is why you should build a private Facebook group, guys, because you can put it in your offer, and especially if it's a really strong community, and we'll do a whole training on how to build a great Facebook community, because I know y'all are interested in that, but that can be a really powerful piece of your offer, and it adds value. I mean, there's a dollar amount to that for some people, especially if it's well done. The USDA certified organic label for your peace of mind. Okay, so again, I don't just say we're certified organic. I talk about the benefit. It gives you peace of mind. It gives you food security, right? So I listed that. CSA training library, ebooks, tutorials, and trainings, so you can use the veggies we give you. Again, I don't just say I have a CSA training library with ebooks. I tell them why that matters. I say so you can use the veggies we give you. Weekly meal plans and recipes for all cooking levels. Invitation to 5 farm events and workshops to connect with us. You see the benefit attached to the feature? And then option to add on fruit, eggs, cheese, or coffee. And if I had more room, I probably should have added a benefit. So you can get your one-stop shop, okay? Something like that. So that was just like the basic container offer. And then, because I did this for a 3-week period, I had some things, some special things, like I talked about that if you signed up by the end of this time, you would get a bonus freebie that would disappear, it would never be offered again, of all the recipes that were shared by members in our last season, in the 2017 season, on the private Facebook group. This was like a 100-page PDF. It was awesome, and our customers freaked out about it. They wanted that freebie. So yeah, that took me a day to put together, but that would be an example of a bonus. So that was my offer, and it was like, it ends, you've got 21 days, and it ends on the 21st day. I've only got 100 egg shares. When those are sold out, those are sold out. So that was also kind of part of the offer. It created scarcity there. So I hope that gave you some ideas of what I mean when I say in this step to think about, what is your offer? What are you putting together? What's the package going to be? And as we go through the rest of this training, you're going to get some ideas for what might be in that offer. Okay? Step 4. Brainstorm. Now is the time to brainstorm a list of all the potential elements that might be in this drip campaign. Okay, so this is where you're going to use that worksheet to help you. I'm going to go through them all, but they're listed in here, and I got like kind of a space for you to jot some ideas down. All right. Before I jump into that, I'm going to answer a question that I know you're already thinking. You're wondering, okay, well, how many emails do I need to write? Okay, that's a great question. The standard answer out there is as many as it takes. Whatever it takes. It really depends on the industry, right? So I would say as a rule of thumb that if you're going to use the 14-day container, to maybe aim for like 10 emails, okay? If you're going to use a if you're going to build an email campaign that's just your general, hey, when you find out about my CSA, if we're already closed or we're mid-season, I'm just going to stick you in this drip campaign. Maybe you'll buy it something at the end. That kind of campaign, I would say about 30 days long. You're not writing an email every day though, so that one might have 15 emails, but it could be less. It kind of depends on what you think. You're probably freaking out, but don't worry. As we go through this training, you're actually going to be amazed at how quickly those emails fill up with ideas, okay? There's a lot of things that you could talk about. Okay, so here's some suggestions. So now I'm going to start talking about some of my ideas for what you could be writing an email about. And as you write these emails, this is another kind of tip. Every email should just have one focus, all right? You're not trying to do 6 different elements, one thing, okay? So that's what makes this nice. People don't have the attention span. They don't want to read long emails. They're going to scan your email first. And then if they think it's worthy of being read, they'll go back up and actually read it in detail, which is why you don't want to make it so confusing that their brain turns off, right? They don't want to burn calories reading your email. So you've got to make it really caveman simple. So keep it focused on one topic. So here we go. The who are you, meet the farmer kind of email. So remember, if this is a sequence written for someone that doesn't really know you yet, but they want to know a farmer, then it's probably appropriate for you to have a whole email where you just introduce yourself, where you say welcome, or where I have an email where it's a picture of my husband, okay? Here's a photo. Now, maybe you haven't met him yet, but virtually you can see a picture of him right now, and maybe you'll feel a connection because you've looked at a picture of him, and he's quite handsome, right? But this is a chance in that email for you to do some self-disclosure, to talk about, not about necessarily the history of your farm, right? Because the customer needs to stay the focus. The customer is your hero. This is why that story brand book is so key for you to read. You never want your emails to get focused on you. You're always keeping your customer as a hero, but your customer does want to know a little bit about you. But as much as you can tell a little bit about who you are, maybe why you got into this whole CSA thing in the first place, why you believe in it. Maybe I talk about a lot in mine about what I was like before I met Kurt. I was such a different person, a suburban girl who I didn't know how plants grew. I was surrounded by combine fields and I never noticed that they were cutting them. It's just bizarre. So I kind of share that story and how being on a farm has completely changed me, So it's kind of a way to self-disclose. They can see my story, they can identify with me, because I think a lot of my customers, when they first start, are like that, and that's why they come to me, is because they want that story, that change, that transformation that I went through. Okay, so I kind of touch into that. Okay, so remember this, I feel like this email is important, and it works because we know that the number one reason people sign up for CSAs, or maybe the second reason, is that they want to connect with a farmer. So if you do that early on, this should be early on in your campaign, should be one of the first ones, where you just say, this is what I look like, here's my story, this is what I want to do for you, okay? The second type of email container that you could make, I don't think I put this one in here. Shoot, this one got lost. So add this one to your worksheet, okay? I'll do that, I'll fix it later. Testimonials and case studies, okay? There should definitely be 1 or 2 emails in your drip campaign that are a testimonial. Like, here's what other members have said about our farm, about our product, okay? And you can kind of flower that up a little bit, but that is the core of the email, is one person's testimonial. And you want to select that testimonial very carefully. You don't want to have it be like, wow, I really loved my CSA, the food was so great. Okay, so that feels good to read as a farmer, don't get me wrong, but that doesn't speak to any of the values or aspirations or pain points getting solved. So if you can find a testimonial that has more meat to it, that will resonate with someone who's reading it for the first time, use that one. And if you have a picture of that person, you get permission to use it, even better, okay? So I like to try and put at least one of those somewhere in the drip campaign. If it's a really long campaign or I feel like I need another one, I can stick one towards the end, do a second one. I have a whole video in the archives about the anatomy of a great testimonial. So if you want to go and watch that, testimonials are something that you should be collecting. You should have a mechanism in place in your business for collecting testimonials because you can use them everywhere. And this is an example of one of the places where you can use them, okay? So, all right, the next kind of email container that you could think about sticking in here is your bonuses. Okay, so we've already kind of mentioned that earlier on. So what exactly is a bonus? It's a related but unexpected surprise addition to the offer, okay? So I want you to think about, you've gotten your customer to almost to boiling, right? They're at 211 degrees and they're thinking about buying, and then you talk about a bonus and it just tips the scales and it brings them to the boiling point and now they're ready to buy. So you want to think about something that you could add to the basic offer of a box of vegetables and access to your farmer in the Facebook group. Think of something that you could offer that will tip them over the edge. That's just too good to be true. That's like, oh my gosh, surprise. And it needs to be related, right? Like it has to have something that's going to help your customer move a little faster. It's almost like it's going to provide a shortcut to them to get to their desired after state. Remember that before and after grid? So we've got the before and then the after picture of your customer. The bonus, if you can, a really good bonus is going to just help them get to after a little bit faster, and that's why it's going to appeal to them. So I like to use information products as bonuses because I don't like losing money, and so I feel like giving somebody an extra week's share or something like that is really money out of my pocket. And if I can think of something else that would do the deed without having to take money in my pocket, I would rather do that. So I shared with you the bonus that I used for my current members that I was trying to get to renew was the book of recipes that came from the private Facebook group. For my second campaign promotion that I did to people who were on my leads list but had never been in my CSA, the bonus for that 2-week period was that they were going to get an ebook, The Guide to CSA Success, where I was going to kind of give them the shortcuts and the hacks for how to succeed at CSA. I haven't written that yet. I have to have that done by the end of February. But I felt like I could do that, and that would take me a couple of days to put together. So again, that was my information product for them. Maybe the bonus could be like that they get they actually get a physical product. So it could be an extra share. It could be like a kitchen tool. So I thought of, one of the ideas that I thought of was those green bags, those Debbie Meyer green bags, which are, actually I gave all of my customers on the first day of CSA, when they picked up their box, they all got 2 green bags, not actual entire packages, but 2 green bags, so that they could try them out and see if they liked them. But that could be an idea if you wanted to spend money. You could say you get, a package of green bags. Those cost like $5 or $7. So I don't know if you want to spend that. Maybe it's another type of product that would be, that that your customer, maybe it's ice cube trays, because they're going to need to freeze their produce. I don't know, I'm just brainstorming here, but it could be a physical product that you give them. Did I say discount? You could give them a discount of some sort. So those are just some, that's a very short list of bonuses. If you listen to other video on building your offer, you will get some other ideas in that, okay, for what a bonus could be. Okay, another container for an email. Oh, so I was going to say, back to the bonuses real quick. So once you have an idea for what the bonus is, I usually spend a couple of emails at least talking about the bonus. So there will usually be a whole email on the very front end, maybe the third email, after I talk about what the core offer is. Then the next email will be like, hey, and did you know, I'm not just giving you what I told you about in the email before, but I've got a bonus. If you sign up by you get this, okay? And I focus that whole email all about how awesome this bonus is, why it matters, how it's going to move them forward, what's at stake if they don't get that bonus, okay? And then I'll bring it up again periodically in some of my other emails I'll be like, have you decided yet? And don't forget, the bonus disappears. And then at the end of the process, if they still haven't signed up, one of the last emails where I'm really pushing the urgency, like, hey, the deadline's coming. In those emails, I'll talk about the bonus goes away. Let me review with you what the bonus is and why it matters. Okay, so this bonus, if you have a bonus in place, you can really be putting that as an element in multiple places to create some urgency. Okay, next container for an email idea is objections. This is a really good one. Okay, so this is where you're going to need to do a little bit of homework, maybe 10 minutes, jotting down on this worksheet. List the objections your customer has. What is keeping them from buying? What is keeping them from buying? I have an entire email in one of those campaigns that's just all about the objections. If you have a lot of significant objections, you could even create one email per objection. And talk about that and space them out, okay? Or you could kind of subtly bring them up as something that you solve when you talk about something else in an email. So, for example, one of my emails I give away a broccoli ebook. I give an example of one of my ebooks and I give it away. And I don't just talk about, hey, I've got this great CSA training library with all these awesome resources, but I also speak in the copy to this objection that I know that my customers have, like, I'm a picky eater. I don't know how to eat some of this food. And so I'm going to be able to kind of address that objection in the very same email where I'm talking about this thing I'm giving them away as a freebie, right? So the broccoli ebook email is a powerful email because it does several of these things that I'm sharing with you in the same email. It's not just giving away free content, but it's the way I write it, it's also addressing one of the objections that I have, or my customers have. So it's important for you to identify what the objections are. Just write them down and then keep those on your radar as you're building these other elements. You can kind of insert them, be like, well, my product is going to help you with that objection by doing this. You're not going to have that problem. Or, I know you're worried about that, but let me tell you what my customers, have experienced. So here's some objections that I wrote down. The top one for my customers that they think about that keeps them from buying is, I'm afraid I'm going to waste the food. Okay, so I bring that fear of food waste in a lot in some of my emails. I can't choose exactly what I want for my box, right? So they want to be able to do a pick and choose kind of market share buy down thing. This particular product doesn't do that. We're developing a product that does, but for this one it doesn't do that. So that is an objection, and so I address that in some of my other emails. I've got picky eaters at my house, okay? That would be another one. So again, if there's a way that you can acknowledge in an email, do you have picky eaters? Does your husband just only want to eat meat and potatoes? Or are your kids afraid of greens? Or, tell a story about how you've got a kid that, you've got to hide the kale in the spaghetti sauce, or you've got to hide the carrots in the spaghetti, whatever, because otherwise they wouldn't eat it. So you identify with them, you understand that objection, and then talk about how you solve it. Okay, so again, this particular topic, it's going to be different. I don't know what the objections are for your customer. Just write down what they are in this section of the worksheet. Okay, just write them down, and then just keep that kind of front and center as you are filling these email containers later. So these other elements, you can pull those in, or you can decide, I'm going to write an entire email that just deals with this objection and really speaks to it. Okay. All right, the next one is defining the problem. I have a feeling this one isn't in here either, but maybe it is. Define your customer's problem and address it and agitate it. So this is a whole strategy. You could write a whole email where if you know what the problem, the ideal, the obvious problem is for your customer. Maybe it's I don't feel connected to my food, and I want to feel connected to my food. Okay, you could write an entire email that brings up that problem and that agitates it. Just imagine yourself sticking your finger in a wound and just give some examples of how that burns you. Talk about how, a specific scenario that they've felt or thought in their minds about how they feel disconnected from their food. And then, example, here's another one. I hate going to the store and buying tomatoes that taste like cardboard. Okay, I've actually had customers say that to me. So I will talk about that. This blah taste is a problem that some of them experience. So I agitate it and I talk about it. I'm like, oh, doesn't that stink? And then I'll bring it back to, do you know that our food tastes amazing because of the soil, that it grows in? And so I can address it and I solve the problem for them in that email. So this is another kind of container you can just write down. What are some 3 or 4 of the main problems that our customers have, or why they're coming to me? And then you can create an email where you agitate the problem in the email and then you solve it. You talk about the benefits and how this particular product is going to solve it. Okay, it's another strategy. Okay, another container, scarcity and urgency. So brainstorm some ways. This was kind of part of the offer. Brainstorm some ways that you can make them feel the burn, right? Especially if you only have so much time to sign up. How can you make them feel the clock ticking? So this is why I really like creating offers that are short term, that have bonuses that disappear. Okay, that's an example of creating urgency. Like this is not available again after this day, and then you got to hold the line on that, right? You can't get this. If you want this piece, you're gonna have to pay for it extra. This is free now. So think of information products that you could give away and then say they're going, they're available until a certain time, and then they go away. You could also have a product, like I said before, that is scarce. It's already a scarce resource. You don't have very many of them, and the first 100 people who get to it, they get to it. So this happened for us we have an egg share that's really, really popular, and I didn't give people squatting rights this year. I was like, look, if you have an egg share, it's free game. I have so many people who want in, and I'm going to open it up to everyone. And I did that on purpose because I knew it was going to be okay. I knew that the people who really wanted it were going to still be able to get it. But I wanted to force the urgency and the scarcity piece. And it worked. On my first day, I created some hype before I opened the cart. And on that first day, my CSA members, I just heard that my phone was like, bring, 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 like for the first hour. It was crazy. And they almost sold out. I think they were like 85 of them were sold out by the first 2 days. So, think about what some of those things are, and you can create this excitement and this fear in your emails. So, how did I use that urgency in an email? Well, I talk about it. I talked about for example, the egg share. Before I officially opened the cart, I started this email sequence. I think it was 4 days before I opened the cart. So that gave me a chance to do the prep work, to kind of lay out the groundwork and say, these are the prices, this is the offer, here's the bonus. And by the way, there's only 100 eggs. So if you want an egg share, you better be like online at 8 a.m. October 1st. So that's kind of where I stuck that urgency piece. Scarcity piece was right on the front end, right before I opened the cart, okay, to create that hype. I also use the urgency piece at the end of the campaign. So the last day of the campaign and the day before, I'm really pushing urgency in my message. In fact, I think that's all it is. It's like, hey, it's very short. It's like 4 or 5 sentences. This is going away. Because at that point, I figure they're kind of tired of hearing from me. So I'm just kind of reminding them, like, seriously, this deal does go away. The offer is running out. And if you haven't signed up, this is your last chance. So the second to last day, I send one that's all about urgency. That's all that's in it. The last day, I sent 2 emails. And they're both very short and just about urgency. Okay, reminding them that the bonuses are going away. Okay, the next email container, this is a really good one. to brainstorm your frequently asked questions, FAQs. So you might have 3 or 4 or 5 of these, and then each of these frequently asked questions can become their own email if necessary. It kind of depends on how big they are. I have also sometimes created one email that just lists all the frequently asked questions. But I use the ideas that I get from this list to write about some of the objections that people are having. And these are the questions that are holding them back, so I handle them. I deal with them straight on. So, for example, one of my frequently asked questions is, what's going to be in my box? It's probably the number one question I get. And it was such a big question that I created an entire lead magnet for it. I've talked about this before, where I made a harvest calendar, and I showed all the vegetables on one side, and then the weeks of the year, and then I kind of show when they typically might show up. Okay, and this is a general guide, but I talk about that harvest calendar freebie in this email. Okay, so the whole email is just about, have you ever wanted to know what's in your box? Gosh, wouldn't it be great? You're trying to sit there and figure out your plan and what else you should get from the store, and you need to know what's in there, right? Or maybe it's, hey, I'm not sure if this is a good investment, because what if the things you're growing are things I don't like, right? I just want to see what you're growing. Hey, I want to know that too. So, hey, I've got a solution for that. I've made this PDF, download it here, right? And that's the call to action of that particular email. What's great about this kind of email is that not every email in your series, in your campaign, should be buy my CSA. That gets kind of old, so it's kind of nice to break that up every now and then and have something where you're just giving them something. Like, hey, I'm going to give you something that's going to add a lot of value to you. It's going to also answer a question you have and maybe deal with an objection you have at the same time. Okay. Another idea for a frequently asked question was, how can you pay? What are the different payment options? So confusing for people. Or they see that half down and they freak out. That's a lot of money to put down at once. So I address that. I'm like, look, I really like it if you give me half down on January 1st or when you sign up, but if you can't do that, let's talk about it. I'll let you do it for every month, and you've got to have it in by June 1st. So I just kind of spell out some different options and relieve that pressure. Another example, should I get a half share or a full share? Okay, this is a really good one to talk about. I wonder if you guys get this question at all. You can let me know if you do. That particular question is an important one to identify, because here's what I think that question does. It stalls the decision making in my customer. So my customer might actually really want to join CSA, and it's that one question that's keeping them from pushing the button, because they're like, once I get to the sales page or once I get to the store, I'm not sure, I don't know which one to pick. Well, let me make it easy for you. Let me remove that obstacle entirely, okay? And I do. I make sure that I handle that question right away, and I'm like, look, this is a question everyone asks. It holds them up from deciding to buy forever. Let me just tell you right now, get the half share, okay? 90% of our customers get the half share, so you probably will like the half share too. And that frees them, and it just removes a wall that's been in their way, okay? So if there are questions people are asking where you can easily just make a recommendation in the email, oh, so awesome. Okay, so just tell them what to do. Tell them what to buy. And if there are certain products that you add on, like fruit share, coffee share, cheese share in our case, that are really popular, tell them that. Tell them, the majority of our customers love to add this on because blah, 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 blah. And then they're like, oh, well then I'll probably like it too. I mean, you got to walk them down the road, lead the horse to water, okay? So it's okay to make recommendations like that. In fact, that will probably help you minimize their confusion and overwhelm that they're experiencing. So you can create an entire email for each of these questions if they're big enough. That one particular one, should I get a half or a full share? I actually, in the email, not only do I talk about it, not only do I tell them, get this, but I say, look, here's a video that I made last year where my husband and I are actually walking you through the process of pickup, where you see an actual pickup site and you see the extras table. We're going to show you what a full share looks like and a half share, and that might help you. So don't be afraid to use videos If you already have video content assets on your YouTube page, you can kind of stick that link in there, and people can go and see a visual of it as well. Okay. My next category is delivering fist pump content. Fist pump content, all right? This is the kind of email where you give stuff away. You just give stuff away and you're generous. Deliver something that has a big win, something that's going to solve a problem for them, that's going to move them along faster, like we talked about before, to get them to their end state faster. It's going to bring about a small change. I'm going to give you an example of a really great fist pump content. Teach your members how to use veggie scraps to make their own broth. That is incredible fist pump content. You would be amazed how many people do not know that they can have a freezer scrap bag in their freezer where they're putting the stuff they don't really know what to do with, or the tops or the peels, the skins of their onions. Tell them to stick it in there, and then do a video or teach them how to make their own broth with that stuff. Okay? You can either make a video on YouTube and then link to it in your email, or you can just talk about it in the email and how you can do that. And then be like, these are the kinds of things that you're going to learn when you get this box of vegetables. Okay? So that is an example. Or maybe you have a cheat sheet. Like I actually have a video. I also have a cheat sheet that shows an infographic, kind of step one, do this, then this, and this. It shows them how to make their own broth with veggies, what kinds of things they can put in this broth, and what they shouldn't put in the broth to make their own broth. So again, you could give them that away as a freebie. That's a download that they get, and that's the whole purpose of this email. Download that freebie, or go watch that video, because I want to teach you something really cool. Okay, so identifying fist pump content. In that section of the worksheet builder, just write down some ideas. What's something that I can give away to them that I currently have that would really help them feel like, oh, they're going to take care of me, or they're going to teach me something. I already talked about the broccoli ebook. As an example, I have an entire ebook library of 42 titles of all the vegetables that I had created last year, one per week, and so it's this vast resource that I have now that I actually plan to sell to people who aren't in the CSA. They're going to be able, other people are going to be able to buy it this coming season as an entire library. But for my CSA members, I'm kind of being like, hey, this is so valuable. You can get this entire thing for free. Let me give you an example of what they look like. So you want to give your content away in this plan strategically. All right, it should be related, and it should move people down a path. Right, it should not be random, and it should accomplish a micro conversion. It should bring them a little step closer and solve a problem for them, or deal with an objection that they have. Some other examples. You could send them an example of a newsletter that you give to your members. You could give them the A to Z vegetable guide is something else that I actually deliver in case they didn't come through my funnel, through the top of my funnel, and get it. So I'll be like, hey, I got this awesome storage guide. Let me share it with you. You could give them a PDF. I think I did share it in the group, the PDF visual guide of what's going to be in their box that I give to my members every week. I'm like, hey, this is something I give to my members every week so that you can see what's in your box at a glance. You can identify it visually. It's going to give you, quick, like how to freeze it, what to do with it, how to handle it, how to store it, all at one glance, 2 or 3 pages. Let me give you a sample so you can see it. Okay, that would be another example. You could do a whole email where that's all you talk about, and then you talk about the benefits of that. This is why this is helpful. See, we support you as a farm. We help you learn how to use the food. We don't just give you a bunch of vegetables and say good luck, right? So that's the content of the email. I hope this is making sense, but I mean, this one category alone, you could probably come up with 3 or 4 things, and that now you've just created 4 emails in your campaign if you want to use them all, okay? Another category that you could create for an email would be to show them who CSA is for or who CSA is not for. You could kind of go negative if you want. So I shared with you that document, how to tell if CSA is right for you. I would be fine if you use that. I would like you to use it, kind of try to change it up so it's in your own words a little bit, so somebody doesn't just see it and one day go to my website and be like, it's the exact same words. Like, it should be modified a little bit, please, but that is a great example. You could split that particular, I used to do that. I took that entire content and I split it into 3 emails so that they got 2 per day. So the first 3 emails were all about, hey, I'm going to tell you, we're going to figure that out right on the front end. Is CSA right for you? Because if it's not, we shouldn't continue this conversation. You should unsubscribe from this email right now. Right? So I had that as my first 3 or 4 emails right after I introduced myself. It was like, how do you know if CSA is right for you? I bet you're wondering that. Well, I have some questions that are going to help you decide and know definitively if you are. Do you want to know what they are? Tomorrow I'm going to send you the first 2, okay? That was my PS, and that's like a hook. Oh, I can't wait to get tomorrow's email. I'm going to open it. And they read the first 2, right? And then I'm like, well, tomorrow you're going to get the next 2, and the 4th one is a real doozy, you know? So I try to kind of hook them in and get them to want to read the next email. So you can break them up, or you can stick them all in one. Or you could create a PDF document, right, and link it up and say, download this. This is my freebie to you. You could turn it into a quiz format. Say, hey, take this quiz. So there's lots of different ways you could change it. So I think this is a really important one to put in there because it's going to filter people out for you. And frankly, you would rather have them filter out at the front end before they join your CSA than join your CSA, have a bad experience, and now you're stuck with a customer that's not happy. You don't want that. So do yourself a favor and filter them out now before they buy. Just and tell them that. Be like, look, I want what's best for you. I want this to be a good fit for you. That's good for you and it's good for me. So if this isn't a good fit for you, if there are a couple of questions here that are really holding you up, don't be afraid to say in the email, don't be a customer. Don't be afraid. Please don't be afraid to say that. Because you have to be willing to repel people. You have to. If you want to have a strong list, if you want to have a high retention rate, then you need to be honest with people on the front end and say, this is who succeeds. And there are people who do not, and this is what they look like. Are you one or the other? Okay? Because if you're over here in this camp, I can almost guarantee you're going to love it. And people love to hear that. They want that reassurance. And that may be what finally tips them over to boiling point. Okay? What's at stake? That's the next category to think about. You can create a lot of great email content if you can identify what's at stake for people. What is the cost of going backwards? So in this section, I want you to spell out the risks. The risks of your customer if they don't join. If they don't join now, okay? So the bonus is going away. So you're not going to get some of these support materials. Or if you don't join in general, like these particular issues are still going to be alive and well in your life. And isn't that going to annoy you? Speak to their pain points. So this is where you want to watch that video, the before and after grid. And going through that, it's going to really help you with this. You may already or actually know the answer to this section. But you want to focus on the feelings that are in your customer. And the fear of missing out on something is a very powerful motivator. So if you can identify what that is for them and then needle it a little bit, agitate it in an email, that can be powerful. And this is something that you can have I've seen people do an entire email that's just about this. But what I like to do with it is identify what they are, and then I stick them in some of my other emails as part of, the reasoning behind the email. Just find ways to get them in there. So some examples that I have here of what's at stake that I thought of. You can keep having boring meals of the same 7 vegetables for the rest of your life, or you can join my CSA and get, creative and be inspired and see what other people are doing with that one vegetable that you only have 2 recipes for. Okay? So that's what's at stake, boring or grow. You could talk about your kids food palate is being trained right now, and that's going to be trained for life. So do you want your kids to have a hard time eating the vegetables like you do right now? Then no, that's a big deal, right? So talk about that. If you eat more veggies and expose them to a variety now, you are giving them a legacy, a gift. You could talk about being deprived of this community of other like-minded foodies. In my case, that's a huge, huge strength of my CSA membership. So I talk about that a lot, especially to people who are thinking about renewing. I'm like, look, you've seen how powerful our group is and what a difference it's made in your growth. Are you ready to walk away from that? Because you could come get these same vegetables probably at the farmer's market from me, but you're not going to have this support network here and this community and this connectedness and this feeling of belonging. So I talk about that's at stake. That's at stake. Does that give you some ideas? I hope so. All right. The next container. See, there's a lot of things you could talk about, right? I hope you're encouraged. Define the plan. Okay, you should always have one email where you define the plan. I usually put this in the middle to the middle 3/4 of the way, okay? This is the email, it's pretty short, where you spell out exactly how to sign up in 3 to 4 steps, okay? The story brand, building a story brand book talks a lot about this, that this is one of the key steps in the customer journey, that the guide has to provide a plan. Obi-Wan Kenobi has to provide a plan for Luke Skywalker to solve the problem in order to get to his desired outcome. And it's the same for you and me. Our customer wants to be a hero, they want to get to the end where they want to get, and we're the guide and we're going to show them how, but we have to tell them the plan. We have to put the stones in the creek, the step-by-step, here's what you do, because it's overwhelming. This is a big decision. I don't know a lot about CSA, I'm confused. How many pricing points are there? And there's so many different membership levels. And so this is the part where you keep it nice and simple, where you say, step 1, this is how you sign up. Step 1, go to this link. Step 2, decide which shares you like. Step 3, pick your pickup site. Step 4, send in your deposit. Boom, done. And then in my case, I have step 5, request access to our private Facebook group, because at that point, if they do that, then I can take over and make sure that they're getting the other steps that get them oriented into our program. Okay, so I actually have 5 steps, but you never want to go over 6. This is what I've been taught, because 6 or more tends to be overwhelming and people shut down and walk away. So keep it 3 to 5, ideally 4 if you can do it. And you'll see this on really good websites. I don't know if you've been to some websites where they have like 1, 2, 3, 4, right? And it's kind of in the line so that you know what you're supposed to do. It kind of just encapsulates the whole journey and makes the customer feel good, like, okay, I know where we're going now, and it's not that complicated. And if I just do what they say, the other stuff will fall into place. Okay, so one email should have that, and make sure you talk about what's going to happen after the sale. Okay, that final step should be like talking about the benefits. You're going to start enjoying produce, or you're going to start eating amazing meals. Okay, and then another container to consider is guarantees, refund information. So what's your refund policy? Because a lot of times people, this might even belong in the objections category, but some people don't buy because they're not sure, can I get out of it? What if I don't like it? That's a big commitment, 18 weeks. What if I start it and I really don't like it? So what is your policy on that? And we had a different policy when we first started out. We were real strict, like, nope, you're in, you're in. And now that we have a wait list in most years, we feel like we can say, look, if this isn't a good fit for you, we're happy to let you go, because frankly, we don't want customers that are unhappy. So we'll give them a prorated refund. But there should be a section somewhere in this process, and maybe it's in your frequently asked questions section, or maybe it's in your objections email, but where you address this. This could be its own email in and of itself, or you could kind of add it on somewhere and be like, listen, we stand behind this product. We think it's great. We have a 78% retention rate, right? And I can brag on that. And I can say a lot of people really like this, but some people don't. And if you are one of those people, we'll let you out. We'll let you out, and I talk about that. And that sometimes is all that it takes for someone to say, okay, I'm ready to try it then. I'm ready to try it. It's almost like a trial offer, right? So mitigate those risks. I would also say, speaking of risks, if you're doing the 30-day long sequence, where you have more emails that you can write, it might be worth your while to spend an entire email talking about the fine print of being a CSA member, because there are risks that are involved with membership. This is a chance for you to cast vision about what CSAs are designed to be, and it's where people have the customers back and they believe in the vision of local food. And sometimes there are things that happen that we can't avoid, and it's nice to know that there are people that are going to stand behind us, right? So kind of casting vision about, do you want to be one of those people that'll do that? Hey, it might happen. Or hey, 2014 it did happen. We had a horrible flood and it wiped out 3 weeks of boxes, but our people stood behind us. And are you going to be willing to do that if that happens? So to have an email where you just get real honest with people, so that by the time they get to the end, it's like, do you know what you're getting yourself into? Because yeah, it's really cool, but there is a slight chance that you're going to lose some of your investment if we have, a flood and you don't get a box for a few weeks. All right, so that could be a whole other email too. Okay, so those are the email containers. I went through most of them I could think of. And the next step, once you have kind of filled this out, and you're like, okay, I see some of the different possibilities, that's when you map it out. Okay, that's when you actually sit down and map it out. You're going to get a calendar. So what I actually do, honestly, is I get a spiral notebook out, and I write down all the possible email options that I could write. You know, I could write an email like this. I could write an email like this. I'm going to do an email that gives away this. Here's one that's all about the offer. Here's one about the bonus. Here's one that's going to be, you know, at the very end that's like urgency. So I stick them just randomly on a piece of paper. I try to kind of put them in a general order, but it doesn't always end up that way. So they're just there in front of me. Okay, and then I count them all. I'm like, how many is it, right? And then I figure out, okay, I know I want to do this drip campaign to have this many emails, and I want it to last this many, spaced out over this many days. Okay, and then I get out my calendar. I actually don't use this one. I just use this as an example. I'll use a calendar like this, a really big one, and I get these little Post-it note guys. All right, and I start writing down those email ideas that were on that piece of paper. I'll stick them, each one, on a different Post-it note. Okay, and that's kind of where I start making decisions about, am I committing? Is this an email I really want to write? Is this important? And then I begin to put it in order. I'm like, you know what, this one feels like it would be best on the front end. This one feels like this would be powerful and move people along faster in the journey if it's on the back. Okay? And I just start plotting them out on the calendar. That's why it's important for you to know on the front end, you make that decision about, okay, what kind of email is this? Is this one of those 30-day nurture ones that people can just subscribe to any time of year and it just kind of starts teaching them about CSA, or is this during my launch season where I've only got 14 to 21 days to work with, okay? Because which kind of campaign you use depends on what order, what type of emails too, but where they go and how much time you have, frankly, to fill in those boxes. Okay, so every email, the other thing that I do on these Post-it notes is I'll put the general topic. I don't sit and try to figure out the headline yet, okay, of the email. I'm just general topics so I know what I want to write about. And then I will make sure that I include a call to action. What's the call to action of that email? Every single email in your drip campaign must have one call to action. Sometimes two, but usually just one. And you should be very clear about that. When I write the email and I actually sit down in front of the computer and start writing, I write the call to action first, so that I know, where am I going with this email? What am I trying to get them to do? So an example of a call to action in most cases will be buy the CSA, click here to my sales page. But sometimes it'll be things like download my broccoli ebook. Okay? I want to give you something away. So my whole goal of this email is to make sure you consume my gifts. So download this giveaway, download this harvest calendar, download my example of a what's in your box PDF. And then in those cases, I usually have a second. I always include a link, to buy my CSA in there too, but that's not the focus of that particular email if I'm giving away a piece of content. So I did want to mention that. Step 6. So this you're gonna map it out. And I'm not going to go into detail today about how to actually write each email because that's just beyond the scope of this video. Okay, but this is where you start. And then what I would recommend is that you take a look at the email sequence that I created as a freebie for this group. You can download it at sharedlegacyfarms.com/email download. This is the exact email campaign that I used in 2017 in October to get my CSA members to renew early bird rate, okay? And I would recommend that you download that and just read it from start to finish. So you're going to read through all of my emails. And I ask you to do that just because, not because I want you to cut and paste them and use them exactly as I have written. I hope you don't do that because that's stealing, right? But what I think it will do for you, it will give you an example of the style of how these are written, so that you don't just stand in front of a blank screen and go, I don't even know where to begin, okay? It'll kind of give you an example of how you begin an email and how you might phrase a PS at the end, and how you even structure it. Like there's line breaks and there's bullet points, and how does your eye move down the page so that people will scan it and then go back and read it, right? Are there headings that are drawing your eye? Do I use different colors to draw attention? So just kind of pay attention to stuff like that. That would be my next recommendation before you start trying to write. But you're going to kind of have a map. You're going to know what you need to talk about, the basic topics. You're going to know what the call to action is for each of the topics. You're going to even have everything on a little calendar. You're going to sort of know what order you want them to go in. And then you're going to look at that example of an email campaign to see about the style of writing, okay? And that'll give you some hints on how to go about starting. In this giveaway, I can't find, here it is, that I made for you today, at the very end, after this little calendar section, I have something really awesome that I think you're going to love. So I'm actually giving you my sample email campaign that I just wrote 2 days ago. I kind of revised it. I didn't give you the entire campaign, but I gave you the topics and the headline and the call to action for each of them as they're currently written. So this, again, will just give you an idea of the types of topics that I'm using and the way that I've phrased the headline, because the goal of the headline is to just get them to open it, right? You've got to get them to open it. So crafting headlines is important. We're going to do a whole video just on that. But you can see the order. You can see an example of how I feel the order of stuff maybe should go, okay? And that might be able to help you. It says a 30-day campaign, and then I think I wrote day 1, day 2, day 3, all the way to day 19, and you're going to be like, well, how does that fit into 30 days? So I didn't actually tell you, what day of the 30-day campaign these went out, but I do have 19 emails in this campaign that get dripped out in that particular order. The other thing that's at the end of this worksheet, which I hope is helpful for you, is the first email, the welcome email, because this is important. I'll do a brief training on this at some point, maybe early this week, coming week. But the welcome email is the very first email that a customer ever gets from you when they first enter your funnel, and it's important. It's an important one because there are things that absolutely need to be said in there. So I gave you an example exactly of how it looks for me. And this is something that I have copied from other people, so you can, copy the second half of this as well and kind of put it in your own words. Okay. So to finish off today, I am going to just end with some very brief tips about when you're actually sitting down to write an email, just some things to remember. Number one is, like I said before, to start with the call to action in mind. One call to action at least in every email. I would mention it several times, so don't just say it once, at least twice. It should be, kind of in the middle of your copy and at the bottom of your copy. A lot of times in email marketing, you'll see that there's a PS, and the PS will have the call to action in it again, and it kind of encapsulates the entire email. So if people are scanning through the email and they don't actually read it word for word, they'll come to the end and see the PS because it's in bold, and they'll just get, in a nutshell what your email was about. So it's important to add that call to action in several places. So whether it's, click here, download this guide, grab the harvest calendar, buy the CSA, buy the CSA, buy the CSA, right? Number two, add a PS. You should always have, almost in every case, you should have a PS in your email. And like I said, the PS can serve to restate the entire value proposition of that email, or it can deliver what I call the open loop, which is it kind of teases the next email topic and makes them say, oh, what's that going to be? So I've already shared an example of that where I'm like, hey, do you want to know in tomorrow's email I'm going to share with you an amazing resource that's going to help you decide once and for all if CSA is right for you. Make sure you click tomorrow's email to see the first 2 questions. Okay, so something like that would tease them, and now there's this innate need within us as humans to close loops, and so we're going to want to open that email tomorrow just to close it. Okay, so that's a way you can use the PSs. Remember that people scroll down. They scroll the email first in most cases before they read it. So format the page so that it is scannable. Use bullet points. Bullet points work really, really well in copy. They tend to be highly converting elements, highly converting copy pages. Use headings. So when you have another section, don't be afraid to make this one section slightly bigger, or a call to action, a bigger font pixel size. Use bold, use different colors, use italicized. I like to write, if you figured out in my email style, I love to write conversationally, and I love to just write one sentence and then, hit the return bar, have a space, and then be like, yup, period, return bar, space, that's what I mean, folks. I talk kind of conversationally, and, so someone will read something and their eye will be drawn because it's not this giant paragraph. They'll just read this yup, or I think so too, or I'll have these tight sentences and phrases that are 2 or 3 words, and it just draws the eye down, and it breaks up the copy so it's not this one massive piece of text. No one will read that. So make sure that you can write it all out first and then cut it up, hit the return bar a lot, so that you really only should have 1 or 2 sentences in each of your paragraphs. Okay. All right, number 4 is to pay attention to your headlines. Headlines are so important, and in fact, I spend a lot of time brainstorming headlines after I write the email copy, and they're in place. Then I will say, okay, what headline can this have? Because it's got to be a good headline, or no one will open it. So we'll talk again, and we'll do a training about how to create good headlines. But the job of the headline is to open it, not explain the content inside, just get them to open it. Okay, that is it. You're not trying to get people to convert by looking at your headline. Okay, number 5, to highlight the benefits of the product, not just the features. We've talked about that before. I'm not going to go into detail, but just keep that on your radar all the time. Don't get high and dry about, hey, these are the elements you're going to get. Why? So what? Who cares that I'm going to get those elements? Speak to my emotions, speak to my needs, my pain points, my fears, and why the hell it matters that I get this product. What difference is it going to make, and what's at stake? Another tip is to record yourself. If you're stuck and you're like, I don't know how to write, try recording yourself speaking the message out. I've done that before when I've really gotten stuck. I'll go for a walk on the bike path, and I'll bring my phone with me. I have something called Rev, which is a free app, and I'll turn it on, and it's just a recorder, and I just start talking. Like, oh, what do I want to say? And I just start talking out, and then I'll go back and listen to it, and I'll kind of type out the things that I like. The more conversational that you can sound in your email, the better. And sometimes that's a good way to break it, to kind of get out of the, I don't know what to talk about. Just pretend you're talking to someone. What do you want them to say? Or what do you want them to know? And then read the email out loud at the end. Read it out loud. Don't just read it in your head. And see where it feels clunky and where there's too many words there, and that sentence doesn't need to be there. It needs to sound like you and I are just talking over the table. Use a hook. So think about a hook is something that pulls them in on the front end, that makes them want to keep reading. We'll talk a little bit more about what makes great hooks in another video. Use the open loop in your PS. I've already talked about that. Pay attention to the first line of your email for a couple reasons. Number 1, because it serves as your hook. If it's a bad first line, people won't keep reading. And if it's a really great first line, they will definitely keep reading. So that's why it's also important. But it's also the first line that shows up. I wish I had my phone, but if you open up your Gmail or your email account on your phone, it'll say who's the sender, and then it'll give you the title of the email, but it'll also give the very first 10 words of the email itself. And so if those 10 words can be really good, it kind of helps that person decide whether or not they're going to open that email or not when it first comes in on their phone. Okay. A couple more things. Note that you are not selling in every email. Okay. Of course, the entire campaign is designed to sell the product, but you're not coming hardcore buy in every single email. That's why it's important to really spend some time thinking about your fist pump content. What can you give away? How can you add value to them so that even if they don't buy from you, you can feel like, I have brought them further along in the journey. I have given them something that's going to make them better. Okay, that should be your goal. So having emails periodically spaced out in your campaign are important, because people get tired of the hard sell after a while, right? They do. And so if you break that up with, hey, I'm going to give you something really valuable, it's like, okay, then it doesn't feel like such a sell. So we talked about how often do you send your emails, or how many should you make, and how often should you send them. So I would recommend that the first 4 days should be every single day. I know you're going to be like, what? I'm like, look, I absolutely believe that to be true, because the people who have subscribed to this list, they have raised their hand when they downloaded your lead magnet. That means they are interested. They want to know everything they can. There is a small window of time right here that you have to feed them knowledge. They actually want you to talk to them about this product, and they are going to open those emails. So every day for the first 4 days, you send them something. Absolutely. And then after that, maybe you take a break for a couple of days, and then you send them another one, and then maybe you take another break. And that's where you can kind of play around. But definitely on the front end, the first 4 days, there's an email coming every day. So think strategically about what those messages are, because those are the ones that they're probably definitely all going to open. And after that, some of them will begin to kind of pick and choose and not always open everything. And then at the end of the launch period, I always have the last 2 days, I have like 3 emails that go out in a row too. So boom, boom, boom. I really hit hard and be like, hey, last chance, last chance, last chance. I want to make sure you get this message. I don't want you to miss out. Okay. So I know some of you are going to think that's a lot of emails to send to someone, how I feel really salesy. And I just want to remind you, and I want to encourage you, that a person that has shown interest in your product doesn't mind if you talk about it. Now, you can't talk about it forever, okay? So that's why these email campaigns come to an end. After 30 days, you will be done talking to them about this for a while, until if they don't buy, then you're not going to talk to them specifically about this product again until you have another launch, which might be in 6 months, and then you can send them and put them on that short-term launch thing again. But yeah, when someone raises their hand and says, I want to know about this, they are not going to be upset if you pitch them. Now, they would be upset if you pitched them eternally, forever and ever, every 3 days. At some point, you need to stop, right, the intensity. But for a 30-day period, which is kind of the rule of thumb, that's kind of what's done. If you're going to do the launch where you have a short-term pitch, like where you're going hard and fast, again, people know coming into that, especially the way that you talk about it, it's like, look, this is a short period, there's a deadline, in 14 days it's over. So people expect you to sell and be salesy for that amount of time, okay? And they're not going to be turned off by it. If they are turned off by it, then they're not your customer, and they'll unsubscribe or they'll leave, right? And okay, no big deal. So try to get over that fear of sending too many emails. If you're sending too many emails, then they'll unsubscribe and then they're not right for you, okay? What I would be more concerned about is making sure that that your emails, when you write them, that they're good. If you know that your emails are good and you have a good campaign, you don't need to worry, okay? Some people are going to fall out, and that's fine. You just focus on figuring out a strong map here, figuring out your strategy, what you're going to talk about, and then write it out. If you feel like, you know what, that's that's damn good. And don't worry if some people get annoyed that you write them every single day. Then they'll unsubscribe and they're not your customer anyway, okay? Awesome, I'm done. There was some other stuff I could have talked about, but I think that by looking at my freebie that I gave you and seeing like a sample list of headlines and call to actions for a 30-day sequence, I think that will be probably enough for you. If you have any questions, I know I'm going to look at them here in a second. I want to remind you to download the 2 giveaways. Our sharedlegacyfarms.com/campaign builder if you want to get this guy that helps you kind of map it all out. This also has a sample welcome email written out for you that you could look at, as well as the titles of all of the headlines and call to actions of the 19 emails that are in my 30-day CSA leads sequence. Okay, that's the one that I just wrote yesterday, 2 days ago. That is my new one for this year. I used a lot of the stuff from last year and just repurposed it and kind of moved it around and changed it a little bit, but that'll kind of give you an idea of an example of how you could map this out. So campaigns, sharedlegacyfarms.com/campaign builder for that. The second giveaway that I would recommend you get if you haven't gotten it already is sharedlegacyfarms.com/email download, and that is where you actually see the physical emails that I sent out last October to my current CSA members to get them to renew at an early bird rate, and I got a 78% retention out of that campaign. So that's a powerful one just because you can see how I actually word the emails, what I say in them, to get them to move along. Okay? All right. Tom's like, great, time to get to work. Yes. I'm sorry that this was so long. I actually feel really bad about the fact that these are incredibly long emails, or sessions, but this one and the lead magnet one I feel like are such core topics that I want to really dive deep and give you actionable, practical stuff. Becky, you've got a question here. I don't have a list of leads, but need to get us out there more to get more members by March. I know these emails take a while to catch people. What do you recommend for getting you out there quick and getting new members quick? Facebook ads, still a 2-week campaign. Becky, I don't know if you can write this back real fast. Do you have anyone in a CSA yet? Are you at 0 members, or do you have some? That would be kind of interesting to know. But I would definitely say at this point, Facebook is where you should focus, and you will have to use Facebook ads. But I'm gonna do a video session on like how to create a promotion campaign. Email is just part of it. Email's the heavy lifter, right? But you need to have a promotion strategy beyond just an email campaign. So what do you do to get people to even find your lead magnets? And one of the things that I did last year, I did a lot. I pretty much did Facebook Live videos where on my page I got in front of a camera and I did a lecture like I'm doing right now, and on a particular topic. So that was just sort of broadcasted to everyone who was on my Facebook page. Let me give you an example. The topic was, there were like 4 or 5 of them, but one of them was how do you know if CSA is right for you? Okay, so I did a whole video where I talked through that, and then I offered this lead magnet and said, hey, if you want to take the quiz, get it here at sharedlegacyfarms.com/write-CSA or whatever it was. And so there were people who watched that video and then downloaded that, and I got their emails, and then I started them on that email campaign that I wrote, and many of those people converted. Another topic was I walked through, okay, I was thinking in my mind, if someone's in the market for trying to pick a CSA and there's several in their area, like how do you pick the right one? How do you know which one to take? So I did a whole training session on, the questions that you should ask. Was like a checklist of questions you should ask when you're comparing local area CSAs together to figure out which one you want. And then again, I had a checklist that you could download, and that really reviewed a lot of the stuff I covered in the video, and people downloaded that. So I came up with topics that I could talk about, and that was part of my promotion calendar. I had a whole month where I had a plan, like on this day I was going to do this live video on this topic, and then on this day I was going to do this topic, And then the drip campaign was pre-built, right? And it was then the automated sequence behind the scenes that once I pulled people in and got their email, this is what went to work and sold them. I also had a private Facebook group that I created for just 30 days. And I invited, in those videos, I invited people into that private Facebook group. And I said, hey, if you want to join that group, I'm going to be talking all about CSAs, asking what you can ask questions there. I'll be doing Facebook Lives, Q&As. And so I just created that group for 30 days. And when it was done, many of those people did end up converting and becoming customers because they had time with me. So that's another thought that you could do. You have 4 people. Okay, yeah, that's a small group, and so I would definitely say that Facebook ads is the way to go. And I'm not sure if a 2-week campaign is the right way for you to go this first year. So I would probably build the more open-ended one, and not have this like, your back's against the wall, all the bonuses are going away in 5 days, because you're probably not going to have enough people in that group to really be able to hold fast to that promise. Becky, I hope that helps. Okay, we're done. If you have any other questions and you're watching this as a playback, please put them here. I'll keep checking and I will try to answer them right away. And if there's a particular resource that you really wish I would provide for you, or a particular topic that you want me to start talking about, put that in the comments too, because I'm always looking for suggestions for how to add value to you guys and move you faster. I know you want to get to the finish line, and my goal as your guide is to get you there as fast as I can. So whatever feedback you can give me, I would appreciate it. All right? Have a great one, guys. Take care. Bye.
May the force be with you.